So when we were going through the photos for the Bill and Diane Jennings Memorial, Ceci and I were chatting back and forth. We had a little trouble finding a good photo. We couldn't find it in Sheila's archive, so eventually she came up with this photo. I said, "There's got to be something with St. Joe in the background." She sends us the photo, and somebody on our committee says, "We'll just cut out Father Bannett." I said, "No way that's happening." Father Bannett was like a second father to me, and I still remember those days out in Lake Bonet every other weekend, fishing. I didn't know how to clean fish or anything like that, but we got a lot of stuff done for athletics, and it was every other weekend, but it was fun. And he did teach me how to drink wine, which it's got its good and bad points, as you might imagine. But I was on the executive committee. As me, the Vice President Nichols, and Maniscalco, and those people, and Father Ben, we had met every Monday. So at the end of the lunch, he said, Bill, we have an emergency, highly confidential in the athletic department. Could you stay a few minutes afterwards so we can have that conversation? I said, sure, Father, I'll be there. And as soon as all the other VPs left, he turned to me and said, Chardonnay or Merlot? That was it. But we've had a lot of fun with Bill and Diane. Bill, I was an AD for 35 years, intercollegiate athletic director. I've never met anybody like Bill Jennings. Anybody, anywhere. He was uniquely creative for especially a football coach, when you feel like the Vince Lombardi of 3 yards and kind of Woody Hayes. But he was something special. I told a story last night, but I was a 28-year-old athletic director, 28. And I've had this legendary football coach walk into my office, and he's got cow dung strung around his neck. And I says, we had got off to a rough start. I think we're 0-2, maybe 0-3 that year. And I kind of looked at him, I said, Coach, you got cow dung hanging around your neck? He goes, Bill, when you play like crap, you smell like crap. So please welcome Ceci Jennings. Father, you're done already, Father? Okay.
Incidentally, I was part of the Animal House crew last night.
Ready photos?
And no, luckily, but there were many stories, and it was an honor to be with them. I felt like I was hanging out with my brothers. So thank you very much for including me. And luckily, I wrote this before last night because they had a lot of suggestions that this is the PG version. Okay, thank you, Bill, and thank you, Hall of Fame Committee, for this recognition. I, as well as my 8 siblings, Lisa, Heather, Dawn, Bill, Jen, Tom, Stephanie, and Scott, humbly accept this on behalf of Mom and Dad. If Mom and Dad were here right now, Dad would be accepting this award, and you'd be in for a real treat, because he was a pro at the mic. Some may say long-winded, but he was quick-witted, eloquent, informative, and entertaining. And Mother would have been stood by his side, beaming at him and laughing along with us. Mom and Dad were a fun-loving, hard-working, dynamic duo who were devoted to each other, their family, their faith, and SJC. Independent of each other, they were unique and spectacular. But together they were a force with an unbreakable bond, and St. Joe gave them that platform from which to work. Mom and Dad were considered educators and mentors, both at home and SJC. They definitely had different styles of mentoring. Mom had a soft yet firm approach, peppered with patience and kindness and humor. And while Dad was certainly kind and loving, his approach was a bit more unconventional in the classroom and on the field, which sometimes left people wondering if he had actually lost his mind. He hadn't, and it was all part of his master plan. Mom, the director of counseling services, had the patience of a saint and was the epitome of grace under pressure, whether it was an emergency phone call in the middle of the night, helping a student through a crisis, or talking dad down off the ledge after being kicked off the field during the game. Mom's warmth came across in her smile, and when you received a hug, you could feel her love and assurance. She was the world's best listener, and at times spent hours on the phone with a student's parents, or one of her children. Her motto was, "Your best is good enough." She understood the individuality of each student and child, and if you worked hard, that's all one could ask for. Mom's witty sense of humor kept Dad on his toes, whether it was the perfect April Fool's joke, telling him that she's pregnant with another set of twins, or sneaking across campus to surprise him with a smooch during his class. Dad's motto was, "There's more than one way to get to your goal." Remember, this is PG, so it's not going to be as fun as yours. Do whatever it takes to get the job done. And that couldn't ring more true than on the football field and with his recruiting approach. He gave the kids who might not otherwise have an opportunity to play at college the chance to play for him at St. Joe. You didn't have to be the biggest, strongest, or the quickest, but you had to have heart. Although he intrinsically believed in all of the players, he had a unique way of motivating, as Bill had mentioned, using tactics such as wearing a petrified cow dung pendant around his neck, using colorful language, reciting interesting idioms, wearing a wool sweater in the August heats during 3 days, and physically throwing himself on the ball to recover his own team's fumble. St. Joe and Charlie Bennett gave Mom and Dad the best chance to thrive with 9 mouths to feed, educate, and continue practicing their faith. It was also a chance for Mom to get the heck out of the south side of Chicago, where she no longer had to answer the door with a butcher knife behind her back, and settle into the safe streets of Rensselaer, Indiana, where nobody locked their doors. Now, there's a plethora of reasons why Mom and Dad love St. Joe, but I'll narrow it down to the top 5. Number 5, proximity and amenities. St. Joe is practically in our backyard with a quarter-mile commute. Admittedly, St. Joe was our playground. We endlessly rode our bikes around and through campus and occasionally helped ourselves to the free soda in the chapel basement. We worked out of Dad's office in Raleigh Hall like it was our own private gym, and sometimes showered in the coach's locker room if our house was overflowing with bodies. Most of us Jennings were employed by St. Joe for the summer. Some of my brothers and sisters had to actually do hard labor, while the rest of us had a more appealing job lifeguarding at Lake Benet. Oh, Lake Benet. If Mom and Dad couldn't get to their beloved Palisades, Lake Benet was the next best thing. Everybody took advantage of the unofficial after hours, including Mom and Dad, and probably 80% of the folks in this room. And some family members of the Jennings who got caught skinny dipping by the St. Joe security team, but I'm not going to mention any names, especially since my twin brother is not here to defend himself. Number 4, St. Joe's tentacles reach far and wide, and it's a gift that continues to give. You Pumas are everywhere. Meeting a Puma, seeing somebody wear a Puma sweatshirt, or bumping into Puma out in this world is a special treat for us. For example, last night. Even though nobody in the Jennings family went to St. Joe, we bleed purple and cardinal. Many stories that are relayed to us about Mom and Dad are not only heartwarming, but bring us even closer to the Puma family, and we thank you for that. Throughout our lives, it seems as though we met more Pumas out in this world, not just at bars or restaurants or football games, but poolside in Vegas, Vienna, Austria, Puerto Rico at a basketball tournament, and the ferry on Lake Michigan, and one of us found out her doctor was a Puma minutes before she went under for her first colonoscopy. No names. Number 3, family and friendships. Family was a priority for Mom and Dad, and as you can imagine, it was difficult to keep 9 kids entertained. St. Joe was a family-oriented college, and Mom and Dad took us to the homecoming bonfires, parades, faculty picnics, football games, basketball games, Little Five, ice skating on the pond. We played in the gymnastics room, and we often had lunch at Halleck and went to Mass at chapel on Sunday. We all thought it was the coolest thing hanging out on a college campus with our parents. The friendships that Mom and Dad formed at St. Joe were vast and held near and dear to their hearts. And now they've been passed down and held near and dear to our hearts. Number 2, opportunity. St. Joe gave Mom and Dad the opportunity to do what they did best: educate, mentor, and raise a family. And they valued that up until their last day. St. Joe also gave Mom and Dad the opportunity to send their children to college we wouldn't have otherwise been able to afford due to the reciprocal tuition. We have Yale University, Boston University, University of Virginia, Marquette, a couple at Butler, and a couple at DePaul. And Dad also earned a well-deserved sabbatical where he taught himself to make bagels and hand them out to Halloween at trick-or-treat, or to the trick-or-treaters, pardon me. He pursued his acting and finished building the cottage with forced labor of the football team. Number 1, students and players. Mom and Dad had 2 families, us and St. Joe. They absolutely considered their students and players family. It wasn't unusual to have a student sleep on the couch or sit with us at the dinner table. And interestingly enough, they had this extraordinary knack of remembering each and every student's name, past and present. But somehow when it came to their children, they would go through 8 other names plus the dogs before they got to yours. With the exception of Mom departing too soon, it was a perfectly paved road for Bill and Diane Jennings and the Jennings clan, Bill and Diane Jennings and the Jennings clan, excuse me. It definitely was meant to be, and largely part due to SJC. The frequency with which Dad told St. Joe stories during his final year is a huge testament to his and Mom's love for St. Joe. And when it's your turn to join Mom and Dad, they will surely welcome you to the Puma dance floor with Louis Armstrong on his trumpet belting out when the Saints go marching in. Pumas for life indeed.
For those that may not remember, there's 2 coaches' wives who worked in what's called student affairs. For some reason, the student affairs office and athletics did not always see eye to eye. But Diane was, it described, she was the one that kind of could mellow everything together. And Liz Reagan worked in student affairs also, and she was responsible for the Sherwin-Williams connection with John Marikas and Pete Ippolito. How'd that work out for those 2 guys? Not too bad. All right, it's all good. Well, we all know Uncle Mike.